English language learning, fostering a culture of risk-taking in the ELL classroom. Dr. Ahmed Shalaby, International Education Consultant at National Geographic Learning, County Manager at Cambridge University Press and Assessment.
Another exciting episode from our unique teacher training program, STEP, presented to you by Edulexa, the leading foundation in teachers training in the Middle East. This is Dr. Hatem Hassanin, the Academic Director of Edulexa, and allow me to present our speaker today differently. As we go back long way, and I have seen and experienced myself and personally the inspiring effect and impact that he had made on thousands of people through his years of experience in the field of education, whether students or educators. So I don't want to waste the time in presenting or mentioning the positions and the titles that he had acquired in the most prestigious educational organizations around the world, but I want to take advantage of every precious moment that we can take from his knowledge and his fruitful skills. Good evening, Dr. Ahmed. Thanks a million. We are honored and pleased to be with us today, and please take it away.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Hatem. I just want to share my screen. And thank you so much for the lovely introduction. Hi, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, good evening, as the case may be, where you're located. If you hear me okay, just send me a thumbs up or just pop in the chat that the sound is okay. I'd like to thank Edulexa and Monglish. Yeah, I can see some thumbs up. Thank you so much. And I'm quite excited to be here with you to, to walk you through and present fostering a risk-taking culture in the English language learning classroom. Before I start, I would like to introduce myself. I know that Dr. Hatem gave a lovely introduction, but I just want to be a bit more specific. As Dr. Hatem mentioned, I've actually assumed different roles with education giants company like Oxford University Press, Oxford AQA, Cambridge University Press of Assessment, and Assessment as an education consultant, and also with Cambridge in particular as a country manager. I taught English in Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and when I was doing my Delta, I did a little bit of teaching with the students in Turkey as well. So I just want to make sure that today's session actually complements the jigsaw puzzle. That I actually, before deciding on the title of this session, I saw the titles that the internationally renowned speakers contribute to this professional development program, like Scott Thornbury, for example, his lovely session about vocabulary, or 10 most favorite vocabulary activities. Dr. Peter Watkins talked about developing writing skills and speaking skills. Peter Hawley as well, and Dr. Saeed Rashad. All of them actually did fantastically well on, in their sessions. But I wanted, and I thought about, well, we want to focus on another aspect, speaking, reading, and writing. But would that happen without encouraging our students to take risks? And that's why this is the main motivation for me to focus on the role of encouraging risk-taking in our classroom setting. So here is the agenda very quickly. So we are going to here's a quick rundown of what I'm going to cover within this session. So why risk-taking matters in the language learning classroom. We need to delve deeper and understand. We can't talk about risk-taking without delving deeper and understand the culture, especially in the Middle East, if compared to English language learning in European countries, for example. We need to understand the context very much because it makes a difference. And I'm assuming that so many teachers are joining us from Saudi Arabia and the GCC countries where they have cosmopolitan classrooms, students from Malaysia, from Asia, from the Arab world. What an exciting mix of students with different cultural backgrounds. And the most important aspect, how to understand risk-taking culture or risk-taking within those different cultures. We will also go into touch on the challenges faced by English language learners. I'm going to give you some practical strategies and practical solutions as well Your role as a risk taker, as a teacher, if you don't, as a teacher, take risk, what would happen to your students? We should actually have this kind of understanding and culture. Teachers should be risk takers as well. I will also give you practical activities for reading, writing, and speaking. And at the end of this session, there will be a quick round of questions, so that you can actually voice or share your opinions or ideas or comments, or even share your questions. So quickly, in the chat box, I want you very quickly to share one thing that you want to learn from this session. I want to go to the chat so that I can see your comments. I can't see anything because, as I mentioned before, there's a little bit of lag. Yeah, I can see it now. Oh, you've got loads and loads of comments here. Thank you so much. All right. So can you share one thing that you want to learn from this session, please? Yes. Tips to start working online. Okay. Tips help me working online. How to improve. Okay. So please make your comments relevant to the topic as much as you can. I want to recognize the challenges and their solutions. Okay. How to be a risk taker. Thanks, Angie. That's a good question. Yes, absolutely. How to deal with the students and let them or encourage them to be risk takers. How to motivate students to take risks and engage. All right, fantastic. Oh, lovely. Lovely things. Wonderful. Thank you so much. I assure you that we're going to tackle these points in more details. How to keep being motivated, how to sustain students' motivation. Thank you so much, Mr. Shaban. How taking risk will help me improve my language. Thank you so much, Andali. All right, fantastic. Thank you so much. Let's move on. So, before we start, I thought I'd share some quotes with you about risk-taking for very famous people. And the question is, why risk-taking matters? And before answering the questions, as I mentioned, I wanted just to share some quotes with you. What's the essence or the significance of risk-taking? What can risk-taking bring about to our classroom practices as teachers? All right, so let's move on. Thank you so much. The first one that I wanted to share with you, and actually let's underline the first half of it. To err is human, but it feels divine. We need to accept the fact that we are imperfect in the first place, and so are our students. Understanding this fact and understanding or believing in imperfectionism for us as humans gives us that, or empowers us to take risks and make sure that we are open to speak and open to participate and open to engage with our audience, and even to grapple with any anxieties that this may bring about. So please accept the fact that you are a human being, whether you're a teacher or a learner. And I always said when I stepped in the classroom, or even in the session that I deliver to my fellow teachers, my fellow colleagues, I always said, when one teaches, to learn. So when you go to the classroom, you are also a learner, in addition to your students. This is a very important message that you have to drive across, or to get across to the students in the classroom. So any comments from your side about this? To err is human. Risk-taking brings, thanks, Mr. Man. Thank you so much. To teach is to learn twice. Absolutely, Abdurrahman. Thank you so much. Empowering students to take risk is learning without having fear of negative feedback. Wonderful, Nasser. Thank you so much, Mr. Nasser. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for joining us. I'd like to say, hi to Al-Manarat or Ma'arif group. Thank you so much for joining the session. In addition to that, Mark Zuckerberg once said, the biggest risk is not taking any risk at all. Imagine you as a person, whether you are a teacher or a learner, always enjoying your comfort zone without even trying to take a step out of it to enjoy the rewards. Not taking risk, you remain as you are. I saw many comments about how to improve myself. If you are not ready to take risks, you're not going to improve. Absolutely. And the first step that you need to take towards improving yourself as a teacher is taking the decision to take risk. I understand that it differs from one person or from one individual to another. However, you must pull the trigger on it and make it happen one day. Next, what we fear doing most is usually what we most need to do. A lot of people say, oh, I want to improve my writing. I don't feel quite confident in this area. I want to improve my speaking skill. I'm not a public speaker. I have that high level of anxiety, I understand, which is an anxiety-provoking situation, of course. However, as I mentioned before, you need just to come to the level. Don't always have that nagging fear. Believe me, if you keep, and also please share this with your students, if you keep hiding behind your fears or the barrier of fear that you have, you're not going to have or to make a step forward towards a progress, a certain progress that you want to make. Okay, the last one, I knew what if I failed, I wouldn't regret that. But I knew the one thing I might regret is not trying. Look, don't always shy away from the fact that there is failure on the way. I understand. And it's a part of the journey. It's a part of the learning journey. Without failure, no success. And give me one example. Please feel free in the chat box. Pop in the chat box somebody who made it to success without any setbacks, without any failures. None. All the great people share that in their journeys towards success, they experience a lot of setbacks. They experience failure. But failure for them in their culture, and this is an important aspect that I'm going to focus on today, failure in their culture is tolerated. Failure in their culture is actually a stepping stone that they used in order for them to make the journey towards the ultimate goal of achieving success. In our culture, and sometimes, please, we need to. Today, I'm just dedicating a good part of this session to focus on a cultural theory by the Dutch theorist Geert Hofstede, and I'm going actually to cast light on it and the implication of that theory in the classroom as well. So I wanted to start by just giving you or sharing those quotes with you so that we can actually have some kind of energy, positive energy, leading up to the climax of this session. Thank you so much for the great session. Fall is just an attempt to learn. Absolutely. Well done. Thank you so much. Abdul, I'm sorry. I lost it. Gabriel, experience is the name we give our mistakes. Oscar Wilde. Fantastic. I've never heard that, but it's amazing. Gabriel, thank you so much. Experience is the name we give to our mistakes. Oh, yes. Without mistakes, no experience. No learning. Learning will be inhibited. Okay. Missing seizing the opportunities is great loss. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Wonderful comments, wonderful quotes. Keep going. All right. Okay. Now, let's answer the question, but we're going to play a game together. I want you to fill in the blanks. Remember the question? What was the question that I shared before sharing the quotes? Do you remember? Do you remember the question that I shared before sharing the quotes? Pop it in the chat box, please. Okay. The question starts with what? Exactly. Why taking risk or risk-taking matters. Thank you so much, Hossam. Thank you so much. Exactly. Now, let's play a game together. I don't want to give you the answers, but I just wanted to create a layer where you can attempt to fill in the blanks. Language learning is inherently, we need an adjective starting with R. What is it? Language learning is inherently risk-taking. You're so close, Andalib. Thank you so much. Risk-taking is inherently risky. Well done. Thank you so much. Now, learners must step out of their, a phrase, 2 words. Learners must step out of their, excellent use of comfort zone. Well done. To make what? What would happen if learners step out of their comfort zone? What would happen as a result? Exactly, to make mistakes. Try new phrases and express complex express, remember the word express complex. Complex what? Complex what? Ideas. You're so close, Hussam. Thank you so much. Complex thoughts in a non-native tongue. Thank you so much. 3, risk-taking leads to a faster what? Faster what of the language? Risk-taking leads to what? Faster learning, acquisition. Thank you so much. Yes, faster acquisition of the language. Better what? Starting in F. Better what? When we learn the language. Risk-taking, yes, exactly. Fluency, wonderful. Thank you so much, Muhammad. Better fluency. And higher learner, higher learner. Yes, fluency is right. Okay. Accuracy, awareness, no, Mr. Taha, no. A, U, the second letter is U. T, A, U, T, got it? Learner what? Autonomy. Learner autonomy. Thank you so much, Nasser. Thank you so much. Exactly. So, right. So last one, in our culture in the Middle East, and as I mentioned before, I just wanted to personalize this session because I just wanted to make it as close as possible to the present reality, the day in, day out teaching that we practice. In our culture, mistakes are seen as what? Failure, right. Excellent. Rather than steps toward progress. And that's the difference between our culture in the Middle East and the culture in the West. They see mistakes as stepping stones. We see mistakes as failure and setbacks. All right, thank you so much. Let's move on. So we answered the first question. Why risk-taking? I put that for you here. The answers are here so that you can actually have them in the slide deck. Okay, let's move on. Building on what I mentioned with regards to cultural differences and the cultural background, if you have a mix of different culture in your classroom, can you just let me know in the chat box? Please. If you have a mix of students, if you have a cosmopolitan class where you have multilingual learners, okay, Ahmed says yes, 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 all right. Now, who tried to read about the cultural differences before the beginning of the academic year, before the academic year starts? Did you ever try it? Did you ever try to familiarize yourself with the cultural differences in order for you to have a safe, positive environment? Yes, Nisma said yes, Nisma Salah, Amr, yes, once, May. Actually, I think this area needs a lot of focus, because a lot of people or many teachers actually just focus on lesson planning, focus on differentiation, focus on pedagogy. That's fine, that's perfect. However, another aspect into the game should actually focus on the culture, because we have so many visible things that we can actually find easily in the classroom, like, for example, Asian food or the Middle Eastern food, the dress, the language, the etiquette, the behavior, the religion. Those are all visible factors or visible aspects. 1 second, please. My laptop gave me a message about restarting, and I just don't want this to happen. Please bear with me a few seconds. I just want to pick a time and postpone this process. Yes, exactly. So understanding, so there are visible aspects about the cultural differences and the cultural backgrounds, like those ones that you see on the iceberg in front of you. So the upper part, yes, we can simply understand the different foods, the different languages, the etiquette, the behavior, that, you know, what kind of clothes people or different people wear. But what about the invisible, or the less visible things, like attitudes, assumptions, beliefs, values, and customs? Without realizing the importance of these and familiarizing or promoting our awareness about, I think we are creating some gaps in the classroom. I'm talking about communication gaps, because I am also going to focus on cross-communication or interpersonal communication, especially in a context where many people who come from different cultural backgrounds exist, like the cosmopolitan classroom, which is something customary. It happens a lot in the GCC. I once had Malaysians in my classrooms, a few students from the UK, one American, one Canadian. And to adjust my communication to this body of audience, I wanted also at the same time to make sure I'm using the right language. I didn't want to alienate anybody. I wanted to create a catalyst where language learning is actually going on track without any barriers. Okay, let's move on. I'm going to now zoom in more closely on a cultural theory for someone called Hofstede, who theorized or who introduced dimensions of culture. Let me just introduce this theorist to you, and I will explain it because the theory is so exciting, and we will understand 4 different dimensions where we need to understand if we're teaching to boys or girls, if we're teaching to Americans or Canadians or Africans or Asians or Arabs in one class. All right, so he was born in 1928 in Netherlands. He founded and managed the personnel research department of IBM in Europe. Of course, we know the famous company IBM. He's also the co-founder of IRIC, Institute for Research on Intercultural Cooperation. And of course, one of the most important part of his career is he's the most cited living non-American in the field of management in the US Social Sciences Citation Index. So, what's the theory about? Any idea? Can the picture give you any thoughts about the theory, this cultural or cross-communication or cultural theory by Geert Hofstede? Any ideas that you can risk take? Try to take risks. Unity, different cultures, we all make up the world. Thank you so much. Multicultural, amazing buzzwords coming through in the chat box. Wonderful. Remember, we're talking about the risk taking. So please empower yourself and take risk. And don't be risk averse. محمد صباحي قاعد هيحب الكلمة دي قوي. محمد صباحي في السيشن دي. دكتور محمد صباحي ربنا يحفظه. So integration, diversity, okay. Coherence, absolutely. Heidi said integration, wonderful. Diversity, Andalib, thank you so much. Said volunteering, differences, okay. Thank you so much. Well done. I really love the engagement coming through in the chat. Different cultures overwhelm the world. Okay, as the diversity leads to unity, cultural pot. May, thank you so much. I love that analogy. Collaboration. Okay, now we have 4 dimensions to focus on. The first one, power distance. I know that I'm not going to talk about the four dimensions. I'm going to focus on just one dimension today. But briefly, I'm going to touch down on the different dimensions so that I just promote your awareness about what each one of them means. Power distance, big time in the Middle East, guys, big time, where we have that steep pyramid of hierarchy. We have managers, and they're actually the principal, the vice principal, the deputy, the head of English. That sort of thing is big. Everybody wants to be a teacher trainer. Everybody wants to be, for example, teacher educator. We have that steep hierarchy. أنا من عائلة الورداني. أنا من عائلة ولد أبو إسماعيل, for example. ده باختصار يعني إيه power distance. ده في الميدل إيست يا جماعة. العمل دلتا أكيد هيكون مر على الباور ديستانس والنظرية بتاعت هوفستيد الثقافية. So the power distance is the steep pyramid or the steep hierarchy in the society. الناس عادي لازم تروح للي هو أعلى واحد تكلمه. ما ينفعش الصغير يتعدى الكبير. في حواجز مختلفة لازم تتخطاها. وفي داينامكس لازم تعرفها. ده باختصار يعني إيه power distance. الناس كتير جدا بيحبوا عيلتهم. انا من عيله فلان ودي من ده اصلا كذا. ده متاصله في الثقافه. انا ليه بشرحها؟ عشان تفضلنا كويس قوي. في بعضكم ممكن يكون درس في فصول فيها VIP people، ناس من الرويال فاميلي مثلا. حصلت مره في حياتي، فكان لازم اكون واعي ان انا بستخدم اللانجوج بتاعتي ازاي. wonderful boundaries, thank you so much Mr. Nasser. ranking, thank you so much, excellent. racism, اوكي. طب ايه كمان؟ what else؟ ده اللي هنركز عليه النهارده. That's gonna take the focus today. This is dimension number 2, guys, is gonna steal the show for sure. Uncertainty avoidance. Any ideas about uncertainty avoidance? From uncertainty and avoidance, you can put them together. You can put 2 and 2 together and come up. We'll try to figure out the meaning. Tolerance. Nada, thank you, Nada. That's a good word. Yes, I'm gonna mention that word again. Ethical background. Thanks, Saeed. Ahmed Ibrahim, thank you so much, Ahmed. We are from one origin and living on one planet. Of course, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm talking about a cultural theory, about the present reality. There is always a difference between the real and the ideal. I'm talking about the real now. What's real on the ground? All right, thank you so much. Andalib, avoid if you are not sure if dealing with different culture. Thank you so much. Fraternity, Ali, thank you. Embarrassing areas, avoid embarrassing. Okay, thank you so much. So uncertainty avoidance is simply avoiding taking risks. Avoiding taking risks. And I'm going to actually shed more light on that in details. The third one, individualism and collectivism. Do you think your students in the classroom behave the same if you are all together and if each one of them was alone? No. I'll give you an example. A big crowd of people watching a game of football. And you know, of course, the behavior, then collectivism, where the barriers melt away. And everybody feels that they are actually melting or absorbed through the collective behavior of the crowd. So the behavior of a crowd, big crowd being together, is absolutely not the same as the behavior of a single individual person. Absolutely right. Number 4, masculinity and femininity. That's right. In some culture, in the Middle East, for example, women should actually take a step back. We are a male-dominant society. Men are always loved to be in the vanguard of things. While, for example, in other cultures, for example, while having a parents' conference, for example, you might notice, for example, that, for example, Egyptian households, or for example, Saudi household, you find the father is always engaging and leading the conversation. While, for example, a couple from Brazil, for example, or another couple from Sweden, or a couple from the UK coming to the parents' conference, you might find the mother, for example, is more engaged and more active than her husband, for example. Those are all cultural differences that we need to know. Imagine yourself teaching, for example, a class, where, for example, a co-ed class, mixed class, boys and girls at the same time, coming from different backgrounds. And you know what, guys? I had this conversation with a colleague or someone who was asking. He said, I am actually planning to do a PGCE and I want to relocate to the UK to teach in the UK. And I went like, oh, that's a fantastic plan. But it's not that easy. You know why? Moving from the Middle East, where we are actually high index on the uncertainty avoidance index, and moving to low uncertainty avoidance index, moving to a society or a different country where risk-taking is an inherent part of their nature, from your origin world, where risk-taking is something that you need to train yourself on in order for you to empower yourself more and step out of that comfort zone. It's not just the language. Don't misunderstand me. There are cultural things that you need to consider in the classroom. So 4 things. I'm going to focus on the second one, uncertainty avoiding X. What does that mean? I can't see you guys, but sorry, I love Steve Harvey and I love his facial expressions. So in my head, I imagined a lot of you when they saw uncertainty avoidance. What does that mean? Some of you have scratched their heads, or some may actually rub their chins. Some may hit their foreheads, for example. Bit of risk. But yes, I just wanted to share that. Okay, so what is uncertainty avoidance? It is simply the degree to which people feel threatened by uncertainty and ambiguity and try to avoid it. This is high uncertainty avoidance. If you're not okay, if you're not happy, if you're not comfortable to take risk and stay in comfort zone, you don't want to share your ideas because you fear that some people around you will judge you because of your answer, or think that you are not clever enough or smart enough. And because of that, you close up on yourself and you stay in your comfort zone. This is called high uncertainty avoidance. All right, any questions about that? Komran Khan, thank you so much, Ms. Komran, for joining us. I'm really excited about your being here. Wonderful. People are scared to speak up for fear of mistakes. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Reluctance to take actions. Mr. Nasser Shahat, thank you so much. Absolutely. All right. So let's move on. Fear of being avoided because of you are unique. Thank you so much. Fear of speaking. Absolutely, Nurhan. Thank you so much. Now, what you can see on the screen is, or the paragraph that you see on the screen now is about uncertainty avoidance index scores. For example, look at Greece. They're 100. So the higher the score is, this means the more people or the more resistance people are to take risks. My point. Okay, so Greece, look at Greece at the top of the list. Yeah, Greek people always have great fears or big fears to take the risk and actually venture out of their comfort zone. Look at the UK, for example, 35, very low. This means that culturally, they're risk takers. You see my point? And that's the point I want to make. For example, I think Egypt is 68 on the score for this theory, but I just wanted to give you a clue. Look at also, we're talking about innovation index. This is something else. Bureaucracy, this is something else. I just want to focus on uncertainty avoidance today, because as I mentioned before, we are talking about risk taking and also all the other cultural consideration that we want to bring together and shed light or shed more light on. So those Denmark, Sweden, look at the bottom. Denmark, Sweden, UK, Ireland, Netherlands, look at the scores. 23 for Denmark, 28 for Sweden, 35 for the UK. Ireland is 35, while other European countries, for example, like Portugal and Belgium and Greece, they have that high resistance to taking risks. So what does that mean? This means that the more resistant to risk taking you are, the less you become creative and innovative. That's what the research says. And that's why today I wanted to share this with you, promote awareness about it, and we'll actually later on, towards the end of the session, we'll share some practical ideas towards how we can actually encourage or foster a culture of risk-taking in the classroom or in the English language learning classroom. Thank you so much. So let's take a look at the artifacts of high uncertainty avoidance. Please feel free. I understand that you might find it a bit difficult to understand what uncertainty avoidance is. So feel free to pop a comment so that I can repeat it or shed more light on it. So what are the artifacts of high uncertainty avoidance? Those countries where the scores are high, like, for example, Greece, 100. So what are the artifacts? What happens there? In this society in particular, where there is a high score of uncertainty avoidance, there is always the tendency towards structured activities, written rules. We have a lot of specialists. People don't tolerate risks easily. If anybody makes mistakes, immediately people pick on it and start making some comments, which definitely inhibits risk-taking behavior, of course. Ritualistic behavior. People are always they're going to do something. It's always prescribed as if it was a ritual to follow. Some steps that they need to follow, and they are not actually rewarded if they improvise or if they become creative or they give their individualistic difference to the discussion. Mervat, it can be a significant barrier. Absolutely, I agree, to open communication and decision making. Yes, and thank you so much for making this comment, because I understand that maybe the most frequently phrase that English language teachers usually say or have in their conversation is student talking time. Maximize student talking time. Without fostering a risk-taking culture, you won't be able to maximize student talking time. And thank you so much for that. Student won't be able to open up and have this positive communication and conversation. And this is actually, I think, something that is or needs more focus and more work from the teacher. And we're coming to this point as well. So thank you so much, Mervat, for that comment. I like it. Well done. Bureaucracy, Nada, theoretical rather than practical. Okay, thank you so much. What about those countries or those communities or societies where avoidance or uncertainty avoidance is low, like the UK, for example. Yes, they live in a relaxed environment, minimal stress. Teachers don't put a lot of stress on the students. They don't actually, overcorrect the students. They focus more on fluency, for example, in order for the students to start, the momentum going. Initiative encourage, yes, in those cultures where the uncertainty avoidance index or score is low, there is always the encouragement for people or for students to take initiatives. Relatively few rules and regulations if compared to societies or countries where uncertainty avoidance is high. Tolerance of deviant, innovative ideas. Any innovative ideas are welcome. People don't look at them as being weird or renegade. There's always that tolerance, acceptance for new things, for creativity, for improvisation, and so on. So May says innovation, flexibility, democracy, student-centered, respect, but maybe no respect for families. Thanks a lot, May, but fantastic buzzwords. I like them. Muhammad says flexibility. Thank you so much. Repartee, Saeed, I like the word. Thank you so much. Such cultures might prioritize improvisation and flexibility. And let me add one more thing, creativity and innovation. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. People can seem quiet, easygoing, but sometimes lazy to those from different background. All right. Yes. Now, I would like, I just put that chart for you, that comparison research that I did on the internet just to find those scores across, not scores actually, but some information that I was able to find on the internet with regards to, for example, those different cultures as opposed to each other. Low uncertainty avoidance index classroom and high uncertainty avoidance classroom. So in the Middle East, for example, countries like Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, they don't have low tolerance of mistakes. And what would that have, what would that result in? Learning is inhibited, overcorrective behavior. Teachers always, create, not all teachers, I mean, the majority, not all of them, of course, create barriers towards learning. By what? By doing what? By their own behavior. And I'm going to come to a very important thing that Stephen Krashen mentioned, the affective filter. There is actually a couple of slides that I dedicated for that. However, look at countries like Sweden, Denmark, and the UK. They were at the bottom of the scale, if you remember, with UK scoring 35 on the uncertainty avoidance index was low, very low, where risk-taking is actually encouraged, and risk-taking is an inherent nature or inherent part of their nature. In terms of participation in the classroom, for countries like Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait, students are active and voluntary, passive and cautious. Yes, they stay in their comfort zone. To the contrary, students in Sweden, Denmark, and the UK, active and voluntary, passive and cautious. But look, they're active and voluntary. Teachers' roles are different as well. It's not just focusing on the learners, but also the teacher roles. Teachers, for example, in our world, facilitator or authority figure, while there, yes, they're authoritative and authority figure as well, but there is more flexibility with the teaching style in those countries, the UK, Denmark, and Sweden. As I mentioned, because they don't overcorrect the students. They always give opportunities where students voice their concerns or their feedback, which definitely encourages an environment that actually helps to build that environment of positive communication. Task design, creative, student-led, structure, teacher-led, they're the same, more or less. All right, so I just want to move on. Yes, exactly so, and talk about the challenges. So just to recap, if people actually joined us late, we started off focusing on the question why risk-taking matters. And we actually shared some quotes to explain the importance of risk-taking. We answered the question. We moved on to discuss or to explore the theory for cultural dimensions or the model for cultural dimensions by Geert Hofstede. And we focused on, or we touched on 4 different things: power distance, collective versus individualistic behavior. And we focused, of course, on one aspect, which is the uncertainty avoidance index. And we talked about the reality in the Middle East if opposed to the rest of the world. And now, what about the challenges if our students remain in their comfort zone? What we want to create a catalyst. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I see a lot of encouragement coming, thumbs up, hands clapping. I really appreciate it. Yes, I think correct. I realized that. Thank you so much, Izzeddin. Absolutely. I think when I wanted to share something at the beginning, I shared, not the final version. I shared the other version, which definitely I'm going to correct that later and share it with you. So apologies, that is a mistake on my part. So I apologize for it. What are the challenges then for English language learners in this context in MENA? Can you share some, please, before I share mine? Concentrating on grammar only and writing issues, not on practicing language all the time. Thanks, Muhammad. Amazing task. Sorry, amazing feedback. I'm sorry. Yes, I see. I just come across a lot of videos on social media where teachers always focus on grammar rules. But language learning is not just about learning grammar. It's a complex world where students need to have more opportunities to focus on how to build a thought process for themselves, how to have, a positive environment, and also at the same time the opportunity where they need to voice their ideas and share opinions and work together. It's not just the grammar rules. What else? No focus on speaking. Yes, we're not doing enough in terms of giving opportunities where the students can communicate orally in the classroom. I agree. Exposure or immersion. Thank you so much. Fear of making mistakes. Absolutely. Learning from Hussam, learning and and teaching resistance on the part of both the teacher and the student. Thank you so much for touching on both the students as well as the teacher. It's not the student alone. I agree. And Dalib, thank you so much. Embarrassing. Okay, no progress. FOMO, Mona say fear of missing out, I think. Thank you so much for sharing this. Yes, in general, we teach to the exam. Oh, okay. So we stick to methods that help students pass the official exam. Thanks, Nada. Absolutely. That is definitely a part of the culture, and this is a very crucial part of the issue. Okay, thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, so the first one. By nature in the Arab world, we have that tendency towards perfectionism. And look at parents will go crazy if their kids didn't score or didn't get the full mark. Does that happen to you? If your students don't get the full mark and you meet the parents, or you speak to the parents on the phone, or you meet them in a parents conference or a parents meeting, the parents will actually hit the roof. Oh, my kid just got a 9. Why not 10 out of 10? They don't tolerate it. They always have that tendency towards perfectionism. Okay. Yes. I'm not alone. Yes, Iman, absolutely. No, yes, true. Nada, sure. There is no practice for language. Maisa, yeah, quarreling all the time. Thank you so much. The second aspect, overemphasis on grammar rules. I think Mr. Muhammad made that comment. And correct forms of the expense, at the expense of communication. We spend a lot of time teaching the present simple, present perfect, the present perfect continuous. Oh, no, it's a present perfect progressive. And we drill, worksheet. We've been doing this for how long? We've been doing it for tens of years. And look at where are we at the moment? Did it help? No. Did it help? The overemphasis on grammar, we've been doing it since I was in high school. And look at the outcome. Look at the result. We need to change the approach. We need to provide, as I mentioned before, 2 magic words in the classroom: environment and opportunity. You need to reset the parameters and create a catalyst where you actually have an environment where everybody is respected. Everybody is involved in the conversation. Everybody is, of course, this goes back to ground rules for classroom management, but it makes a difference. Give up more opportunities for the students to communicate and work together in a safe environment. And look at the result. The result will be amazing from my experience. I saw it. Thank you so much, Ms. Mervat. Yes, valued. High stakes testing. Yes, the emphasis and overemphasis on exams, especially, yes, we have IGCSE tests, we have SAT tests, we have end of year tests, for example, that of course penalizes errors rather than rewarding communication effort. Here I'm talking about the different facets that we need to have for assessment. It's not just the paper and pencil. Students are not the same. And the way, if we are differentiating the way we're teaching the students, we need to differentiate the way we assess the students' abilities at the same time. We don't want to touch, it's not good to touch everybody with the same brush. Absolutely. Thank you so much. So paper and pencil exams, the traditional way of testing the students, it's not a cap, it's, that fits everybody, of one size fits all cap. It has to be reconsidered in a way where the assessment, in addition to our teaching practices, can actually be geared towards inclusion, geared towards mixed abilities, geared towards differentiation, and making sure that everybody in the classroom has got an equitable opportunities. Thank you so much. Yes, teacher-centered approaches where learners are passive recipients. Yes, that's the reality. Remember, I'm just sharing this because we want to deviate and move away from the present reality. We want to have learner-centered classroom. We want to have teachers as facilitators. We want teachers to take a back seat. We want students to be actively involved in classroom discussions. We want to see different ways where we assess students' tasks or students' exams, or even students' activities in the classroom, so that we can actually have a better or a clearer picture of the progress that the students make. Dina said assessment should be a fun part of learning. I agree, but as you understand, we have different consideration with regards to promoting students from one year to another. Also, the high stakes assessment, and it depends as well, because talking about assessment, we have different types. Which assessment are we talking about? Are we talking about diagnostic or baseline? Are we talking about summative or formative? Are we talking about attainment or proficiency? So we need to understand the role assessment plays and decide on the right type of assessment for the right, just to get the right purpose. Thank you so much. Summative, yeah, thanks, Amani. Family and societal expectations that value academic, exactly. You'll find a lot of families coming from the same culture and expect the teacher to be very strict. Yes, you need to correct the child. You need. And some people who may observe your class and say, if a teacher, for example, can ignore certain mistakes that the learners make, some people may observe the class, oh, you didn't correct the students who he made that mistake. We need, of course, to understand the purpose of the activity. If the purpose is fluency, we should give the room for students to communicate and participate, not to inhibit that behavior by actually placing barriers against their engagement. More comments from Alia and Hussam. Yes, more marks, less skill. Alia says, any tips for shy and below? Yes, I'm coming to that for sure. Any students who shy away from taking part in the discussion? Yes, of course. Change their way of deadline with mistakes. Iman says, but Cambridge itself has a very strict rubrics in making tasks, in marking tasks. We're not talking about the high stakes test here. We're talking about our we just need to do our homework, first of all, as teachers in the first place. And we need to make a difference. We need just to draw the line between standardized tests, and because they're important, we can't just, promote students from one level to another, and we end up in students end up in a university or a post-high school program where they're not confident enough. Please make sure that we draw the right line. But we're talking about getting students, just building, laying the foundation for students to risk, take, and learn. Because learning will happen, and then absolutely you need a tool to measure that learning afterwards. So we just need to make sure that we're laying the foundation for students to risk, take, When they take risks, learning will become visible. When learning becomes visible, what would happen later? There will be room for creativity and innovation. And when this happens, we want to what? To assess it, to assess learning, to understand the level of attainment, to understand what the students can contribute, or how they can externalize the learning. How can they evidence the learning they went through or acquired, and so forth. Thank you so much. All right. So now I want you to give me practical solutions. Before I share them, I want you to take risks. What should we do? Can you give me practical ideas, some strategies where we can encourage risk-taking in the classroom? What should we do? Yes, please feel free to pop your ideas in the chat. Simple steps. Sometimes risk-taking leads to self-exploration. Wonderful side. I love it. Absolutely. Absolutely. Encouraging mistakes. Yes, Iman. Thank you so much. Reward them on risk-taking. Thank you so much. Stop procrastination. Thank you. Mervat, incentives. Wonderful. Clear instructions. Foster group work. Communicate in English. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Loads of positive and wonderful comments coming through. Asma, engaging mistakes. Okay. Ahmed Galal, using student-centered learning. Thank you so much. Ms. Samah, thank you so much, but it disappeared. I see loads and loads of comments are coming through. That's why I don't see you. Mariam, encouragement, scaffolding. Thank you so much, comrade. Excellent. Yes, I love it. Scaffolding is great. Yes. So, and we're going actually to talk about it because scaffold is amazing. Don't just give the students a speaking task to participate in without providing the right scaffolding. For example, you give your students an activity where they are supposed to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of social media. And you didn't give any kind of prompts or phrases where they can use. For example, one disadvantage of social media is another drawback of being out there on social platforms is those phrases can actually empower the students because the students will actually hesitate or become sometimes reluctant to produce their own sentences to start off the conversation. And that's what I mean by scaffolding. Provide the right scaffolding so the students can actually have the courage to step out of the comfort zone and use those phrases and add to them and start contributing to the conversation. Absolutely. Thank you so much. So let's see different things that I wanted to focus on. First of all, what you really need to do if you want to inculcate a risk-taking culture in your classroom is, first of all, work hard on building a safe-to-fall classroom culture. A culture where mistakes are welcome. You won't imagine. I'm out of the classroom now. I don't teach any longer. But when I started to have that strategy in my classroom and I made it clear to everybody, mistakes welcome. I don't look at mistakes, or for example, I don't label any question as silly or stupid or whatever. All questions welcome. Everybody welcomes in my class. Everybody in my class has got something different to bring to the discussion. And I'm the first one. I'm a learner as well. Make sure you instill this culture at the beginning, and make sure also that you make it clear to anybody who might actually deviate from this rule, and make sure that in your turn, I won't allow anybody to make a bad comment or a negative comment about your answer or about your contribution to the conversation. Make it as a rule, practice it yourself. You need to demonstrate this as a teacher yourself, and make sure your students absorb the rule. If you make sure that the classroom is safe for everybody to voice their concerns, share their thoughts, share their opinions, participate in the discussion, you will have, and we're going to come to this point, we are going to have a classroom where we see loads of participation. And of course, don't forget, this is one magic technique to do if you want your students or your classroom to be student-centered, because everybody will feel empowered. Everybody will feel safe. And this is the first step that you need to start off with. Stop bullying. Thank you so much, Amr. Shy students need to be able to produce answers in the way they are comfortable. Thank you so much. Absolutely agree. Maisa, never embarrass students or mention names as they won't participate again. Yes, and that's what we call. Gresham said, do not turn on the affective filter. Do not turn on the affective filter of the student. Do not increase their anxiety. Speaking is naturally something that requires production, that reflects your thinking, that makes you, or gives people an idea about who you are. And once you start taunting the student, once you actually start to label or use negative labels, your students won't participate in the classroom. So first of all, make sure that you instill, you inculcate, you foster this culture in the classroom. Everybody's safe, and you are the source of protection as a teacher. Protect the student. Make sure everybody knows that. Make it very clear in a very assertive manner at the very beginning. So tell the student that it's normal to make mistakes. Remember the first, to err is human? Yes. Show them those quotes. To err is human. We all make mistakes. It's not the end of the world. Make mistakes. I value your participation. So you need some time to normalize it. Few weeks, maybe 4-5 weeks of actually making sure to apply this culture or instill this culture in the classroom. You will notice that the shy students started to open up. And this is one comment that we had in the chat. What can we do to help the students open up and step out of their comfort zone? Normalize making mistakes. Always say, I am imperfect. I am a learner as much as you are. I remember, share your learning mistakes with them. Make sure that the students naturally make mistakes. Sometimes you can actually make mistake yourself to demonstrate it. Oh, sorry, I made a mistake. And sometimes value and reward the students for the great things they do as well at the same time. Share your own language learning mistakes that I said. That exactly, I just mentioned that. Once you share your mistakes with your students, they realize, oh, our teacher can make mistake as well. It's not just us, right? You try to embolden them, make them more confident. Okay, so I usually, this is from Nada, tell my students from the beginning of the year that if they negatively comment on their classmates' mistakes, bully, they will lose grades, and it works. And why not the other way, Nada, for example? Why not the other way? If you support your classmate, if you encourage your classmate, you'll get this. Why don't we turn it to the positive side? I understand that you're trying to set a rule. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for being assertive. But what about just trying to put it in a very positive manner? We need to support. Remember, you will need support one day. Your turn is next. You will need someone to support you. You need someone. You need also to hear some nice words from your colleagues, right? Or from your classmates, correct? So make sure that this culture exists, and you will enjoy faster pace in the classroom, more learning happening, very positive environment. You yourself as a teacher, you will feel happy going to this place because it's not increasing your anxiety as a teacher. Thank you. Give bravery points. Anybody stepping out of the zone, of their comfort zone, you will get points for being brave. Recognize the efforts of experimentation, not just the accuracy. There are two things that we need to value. Value the effort and the result. But do not compromise. What I mean is, well, thank you so much for taking the effort to answer. Even if you want to give feedback for the students, even if the answer was wrong or not, it was not a good answer, for example. Oh, thank you so much for thank you so much for blurting the answer out. Thank you so much for participation. But anybody else? Can anybody help? Always demonstrate positive language yourself. Yes, please give bravery points. Okay, let's see a different aspect as well. Yes, do not overcorrect. Shift from the focus from accuracy to fluency. It doesn't matter if the students say, let's, for example, instead of saying put up the music or put up the sound or turn, I mean, you can actually correct it in a very indirect manner, for example, without embarrassing the child or embarrassing the student. Sometimes they use wrong phrasal verbs without realizing. That's okay. Give them the opportunity. And sometimes you can actually, when you give your feedback without, of course, intending to correct, but you can actually say it in the right way. Oh, you want me to turn, for example, up the volume or whatever, for example. Another tip is use activities where, remember the collective behavior, collectivism and individualism, collective behavior and individualistic behavior. If the child is working alone in front of the class or speaking to the class or presenting, that will definitely put a lot of pressure on them. They want to be great. They don't want to make mistakes. They feel very anxious. But what about students working together? Now, the emphasis or the focus falls on the group rather than the individual. So please make sure that you encourage or you adopt those role plays, debates, storytelling, where communication is the goal. Allow errors to go uncorrected during fluency-focused tasks to encourage the flow. The focus is the flow, to keep the conversation going. But only if you interrupt and making, or you overcorrect the students, you will kill the flow, and you don't want that to happen, of course. Competition, excellent point. Thank you so much, Hagar. Write the errors on the board and then correct that later. Depends on the nature of the tasks. If the goal of the task was to encourage fluency, so I don't recommend that. If you are, for example, revising for a test or whatever, I think you can do that. And of course, make it always positive. Thank you so much. What about my shy students? Amani, yes, that's what I'm saying. Put the shy students with the stronger ones. Create group work where the shy ones can actually, all the barriers can melt away, where actually the group can absorb the shy ones. Make sure you place the shy ones in groups. And also talk to them. Talk to the shy ones. Give them the support they need. And talk to the students away from the shy students. For example, tell the classmates, we have some students in the classroom who need help, who need support. What can you do to support them? And you start having this positive communication with the children so that they can support one another in the classroom. Okay. So diversify the interaction patterns. Make sure that you have a wide range of interaction patterns so that the shy ones can actually do and participate within the groups. Peer collaboration, that's dimension C. Group work and peer feedback reduce the fear of teacher judgment. Make sure when you want the students to work in groups, of course, place some stronger students or some strong students within those groups and have the strong ones give feedback to the of course, in a nice manner, of course, train them. You need to do some kind of training where you can actually help those confident students to give or, to share feedback with their classmates. Usually the feedback coming from the teacher, as teacher may be an intimidating figure, sorry to say that, but again, the peers is different. From a peer perspective, it is more accepted than just from a teacher. And of course, there is always a way to do it. And make sure that you inculcate or you instill a positive culture here so that you actually achieve your goal. I think of asking students how they want their mistakes to be corrected, but for older students, that's a good way. Again, open conversation is great, and getting the students to understand you is actually even greater. Create structured, supportive feedback sessions, as I mentioned, with sentences. I liked how you opened the conversation. Next time, you could add, for example, you see my point. It's a very good way of getting the students show admiration. Oh, I like that vocabulary. I like that phrase. I like the way you concluded the paragraph. I like the way you opened. That was a great way to start off the conversation. I love the quote. Thank you. What about assessment? I mentioned that in passing, but again, the way we look at assessment can sometimes also, if we reconsider assessment approaches, I think we can also, encourage a risk-taking culture in the classroom. As I mentioned, it's not just the paper and pencil and traditional assessment that the student can take, end of month exam or a quiz or whatever, where the students need to write long answers and that sort of thing. What about students, for example, building their own or take action projects, project-based learning or take action projects? You were actually doing some reading about pollution or about climate change or about energy resources or even about population, for example, any topic, those sustainability development goals, UNESCO sustainability development goals came to mind. So any topic of these, why don't you encourage the students to take action as a way of assessment after reading? Like what? Like, for example, preparing a presentation about pollution in the local community or the local environment where they live. The causes of pollution, whether it's maybe air pollution or water contamination and water pollution, this will engage them to do something rather than just, taking an exam on it. Or get them to participate with a group where they need to take part to present a research that they already have conducted to find more information about a topic that they did in the class. Okay, so varying the way we assess the students can actually help the students to learn more, to be more creative, to be more innovative. We're not trying always to throttle the way the students learn by actually being overcorrective or actually being more traditional in the way we assess or evaluate their progress, and so on. Design tasks that reward innovation, absolutely. If some students in the classroom are creative in a sense, please make sure that you reward creativity in the class. Make sure that you also make those students share this creativity with the rest. Empower them to speak about it. This will rub off on the rest of the students. Enthusiasm will rub off. Students always feel jealous. They want to come up with something that's even more creative. And capitalize on this sense in the classroom. Make sure that the students together work together and share the things that they're very proud of and the things that actually they were creative about. Engaging parents in the community, another dimension. Those are practical solutions to in parents' conference or your communication to the parents, make sure that your strategy right from the very beginning that you want students to take more risk, you want to encourage. It's always very helpful to have or to drive this point home to parents. Make sure that parents understand your strategy as a teacher right from the very beginning. Because engaging parents are a very key stakeholder in the process. And they can help you at home as well, because sometimes parents themselves are overcorrective or anxious, or they spend a lot of time with their kids, and sometimes they rip their hair off because they can't help the children, that sort of thing. We have got, a lot of dramatic episodes that we can share about what parents do at home. But the most important thing that I want to share here is to communicate your strategy to the parents. Talk to the parents or the families about the benefits, about why they should they encourage risk-taking at home. Demonstrate to your students the progress through the presentations or videos to celebrate effort over perfection. Effort over perfection. So wonderful. You got 7 out of 10, all right, for that reason, but great effort, well done, thank you so much. You've put a lot of effort into the job. Great, well done. Okay, so we need to do this so that the students can actually be more risk taker. What about us teachers? So we talked about the parents, we talked about what we do in the classroom. Do you think, and please put that in the chat, do you think also we need to demonstrate the fact that we are risk takers in the classroom? What do you think? Let me know, please. Let me know your thoughts in the chat. As a teacher, do you think it's important to demonstrate yourself as a risk taker in your learning context? Okay, I'm coming to an end now because time is, you still have just 15 minutes left. I think of asking students how they want their mistakes to be. Oh, sorry, I think we saw that one. Oh, yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. Oh, sorry. Yes, because we are models for that. Yeah, thank you so much, May. Absolutely. So And that's the role of professional development. We need to promote awareness. We need to increase teachers' understanding of the fact that they also need to demonstrate risk-taking in the classroom. As I mentioned, this will rub off on the students. Okay. I'm conscious of the time. Practical activities, very quickly, because I don't want to spend the whole time on just explaining and talking. I want also to take your questions. So if you want a practical activity where you can actually encourage risk-taking in the classroom, encourage your students to make book choice presentations in the reading class. They read a book of a choice. And what about them creating a presentation and talk about it? Please don't forget the fact that your students need to learn how to support their classmates. They need to learn the fact that, well, somebody is presenting, well, there is some time for questions. Give him the time, give him the opportunity so that they do not actually hinder or put barriers to students who are trying to take risk. And I have fantastic couple of videos that I want to share with them, with you at the end of this session as an example of a teacher who was able to tolerate and actually help a child towards becoming a risk taker and towards becoming more confident. So for another activity in speaking, for example, show and tell. I love that activity. Show and tell. Students bring something to the class, something they love. It could be a wallet, it could be a bag, it could be a mobile phone, it could be a camera, a watch, and they start talking about it in the classroom. Of course, they can be creative. They can talk and they can draw, illustrate, whatever. But show and tell, speaking, make sure that you give them the opportunity. And of course, the environment should be actually suitable or conducive for this activity in terms of educating the children to support, educating the children to give ample or enough wait time, and so on. Another activity, this is the last one, is actually free writing, like free verse. We all love poetry and poems, correct? But what about free writing time? Students actually, I saw it in my classroom. Some students were very slow in writing their paragraphs. Why? Because they wanted to be perfect. I just want to power up my laptop, sorry. They wanted to be perfect. Yes, they took a lot of time. Yes, I could actually observe them because they wanted to be perfect. They wanted every single word or phrase to be right. They wanted to write something out of this world. And of course, this hinders their production. So make sure that you have free time for students to actually participate, for them to put their thoughts on paper, and then educate them about the way they should actually go through the process writing. We all know it, absolutely. It's me, that one student. Yes, Hagar, I mentioned that our culture is always leaning towards or swaying towards perfectionism, which is something that we want to minimize. Okay. Encourage risk-taking, storytelling. I forgot to say, an imaginative one that you can also share with the students. Start with a sentence, okay, and ask the students to contribute sentences so that we can actually have a wonderful story. Give themselves a chance. Ask them to give their imagination an opportunity where each student or each child contributes a sentence so that they can have a wonderful story as well. This is what I mean by storytelling prompts. This is another activity where the students can actually take risks. Collaborative activities. Thank you so much.
As always, and as expected, Dr. Ahmed, an amazing session regarding a very crucial point in classroom, which is risk-taking. Definitely, there was no risk of gaining knowledge and experience from this session. That's for sure. So let's take a couple of questions from our dear fellow educators so we can answer them briefly, if you please. We have a question from Miss Amani, and she's a bit cautious about starting her risk-taking procedures in class, especially as a fresh graduate with no probably previous experience in classroom. What tips or advice you can give her, Dr. Ahmed?
That's an amazing question. Thanks a lot, Dr. Hatem, and thanks a lot, Ms. Amani, for sharing the question with me and with us. I think the first thing is communication. We need to have that positive communication, even if you don't feel confident enough or you don't have that nature of being a risk taker. All what you need to do is to communicate. Say, well, I did my best, for example. I know that I'm new. My presentation isn't great. I understand, but always try to communicate to people, and always to try to embolden yourself. The journey starts with believing in yourself, as nobody's perfect. Believing in the fact that it's always to become yourself. I think taking this as springboard, you will start your journey and start to step out of your comfort zone and actually reap the reward next. Remember also that you need to educate yourself about what kind of techniques that you might use in order for you to become a risk taker. Perhaps listening to more, for example, if you think that you're not a confident speaker, why don't you spend some time and listen a lot to people who you think are great public speakers so that you can learn from them? Read more about topics that you are not confident of. Make sure also that you have that culture around you. Make sure that you tell others or you communicate to others that it's okay. It's okay to make mistakes, and even tell yourself in the first place. Tell yourself, and please do tell yourself that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to make risks. And of course, the learning curve will go up once you actually begin this journey with that belief. I hope I answered the question.
Another question from our dear friend, Mr. Omar. How do you gain the confidence of every and each student in class? Especially, I think he's referring over here to differentiation in levels and characters.
Amazing question again. I think the best way is for you the very beginning. It doesn't happen overnight, and it needs steps that you need to follow. For example, at the very beginning of the school year, you need to make sure that you're creating or instilling a culture where everybody belongs. Tolerate the mistakes, tolerate the levels, make sure that you accept every single child. Don't always prefer or prioritize the strong students or the more confident at the expense of the ones who are less confident or less able to produce or do the tasks. If you manage to convey this successfully to the students, and if the students feel it, this is the first step of gaining their confidence or actually gaining their respect. And all what you need to do, the next thing, is actually to practice that and demonstrate it. So number one, make sure that you give opportunity for everybody in the classroom, offer equitable opportunities, communicate to the student that you accept every single one of them despite their differences. Second of all, demonstrate it yourself in the classroom. Spend some time, you mentioned the word differentiation. Spend some time to understand the different levels. It's not easy, but with time, you'll be able to understand. If you're teaching English, try to run a baseline assessment. Running a baseline assessment could let you know or could give you information or some insights about the students' levels across each skills, whether it's speaking, reading, or writing. And please try to use a reliable tool. Once you have the tool, once you have the insight, you can personalize your plans. This is going to inform your teaching and your planning for the subsequent stage. You will, for example, know which students to focus on in terms of speaking, for example, and which cohort of students you would, for example, spend more time with regards to how to enhance or how to improve their own writing. I hope I answered the question. Thank you so much.
An amazing and an informative reply, as always, Dr. Ahmed. I really like this question because I think, especially with teachers in international schools in the MENA region, Middle East and North Africa, they really suffer from this issue. From our dear friend, Miss Lena, as an EFL teacher, how to teach Western cultural topics that may be considered sensitive or taboo in MENA societies?
So, a fantastic question. Well, can I just give you an example about what's our holy book? Our holy book, the Quran. Did the Quran mention any sensitive topics? In the chat box, please let me know. Did the Quran introduce any sensitive topics? Something that we might don't feel comfortable about discussing it, I mean? Absolutely, yes. So, what did the Quran do? Euphemism, right? I mean, make negative topics sound nicer. Don't avoid them altogether because you need to promote awareness about them. They do exist, and even if we don't if we don't promote awareness about them in the classroom, students might be misinformed about them outside the classroom. So what you need to do is just make sure that the students understand the context. Make sure that you use euphemistic language in order not to be blunt or create that kind of discomfort in the discussion. You don't want the discussion to or the flow. You don't want to kill the flow, of course, but you always want the students, of course, to understand. And those issues are critical, of course. So Quran mentioned usury, riba. Quran mentioned zina, for example, adultery. Quran mentioned alcohol. Quran mentioned, for example, swine. Quran mentioned loads of things to educate us about the world and about the religion. So all what you need to do is not just to turn a blind eye, but taking the right approach to educate the children about it, of course, according to the cognitive level. The way you are going to educate, for example, a 10-year-old about it is not going to be the same way you're going to educate a 15-year-old about it. But always make sure that you do not just shy away from things because they're weird or they're exotic or they don't exist in our culture. You need to promote awareness, but taking into consideration the age of the child, the language that you use, and also the approach in getting them. And of course, please make sure that you give them the opportunity, have them take risks, and facilitate the discussion. Personally, I enjoy being with you over 90 minutes now. Thank you so much for taking the time again on your weekend. Thanks a lot for your great interest in STEP as a professional development program. Thanks a lot for taking the time to attend this session with me.
Join STEP today and take your teaching to new heights.